Good afternoon. Today is Monday, November the 13th. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here.
Here.
Casey.
Present.
Valencia. Santana.
Present.
Spencer.
Present.
McCormick.
Present.
Mr. President, Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First up, we have a council piece. I'm going to bring up Ms. Stickers. Okay, and they're a guest, right? Okay, thank you. All right, first piece of legislation, ordinance number 1243-2023 by Councilmember Griffin, an emergency ordinance authorizing the clerk of council to enter into a requirement contract without competitive bidding with Weekly's Mailing Service, Inc. for mailing services with proprietary lists for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the clerk of council. Ms.
So,
Stickers.
Mr. Chairman and to the council members, this contract is based off of the bid that we did earlier this year. The bid is good until February 2024. It allows us to go into contract with Weekly's. Weekly's is the mailing service that wins the bids every year because they have a proprietary list that breaks down the mailings by ward, by precinct. And that's one of the reasons why, it's the reason why we wanted to go into a contract instead of going out to bid, so that when we have special mailings that we have to do, we could just add money to the contract. We won't have to go out to bid every time.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Stickers? Any questions for Ms. Stickers? All right. Since we have no questions, it's 1243 is 1243-2023 stands approved.
Thank you.
All right, next up is 1018-2023 by Council Member Griffin and Mayor Bibb, an emergency resolution declaring council's desire that Cleveland and Kigali, Rwanda, establish a sister city relationship and authorizing the mayor to enter into such agreement and execute such documents that are necessary to implement the relationship. Do we have our guest here from Global Cleveland? 1018-2023. Welcome, welcome. Give us some background if you could, and then we'll go ahead and hear your piece.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you again so much. This is the third African sister city in recent times that this council has allowed us to engage with, and I hope that our third passes as well. My name is Zachary Nelson. I'm the program director for Global Cleveland, and this is part of our initiative to diversify Cleveland's international footprint, mainly with the continent of Africa. Now, this sister city, Kigali, Rwanda, is, I think, a place we can learn from as a city, and my guests will speak on this in more detail, but I hope that you also find, everyone here finds that we can learn from Kigali and they can learn from us, and that we can enter into this agreement together.
Got it. Like to make any?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sarah Schmidt. I'm with Kent State University. I've had the opportunity to watch a deep and meaningful partnership between University of Rwanda and Kent State University develop over the years. We established connecting points with the University of Rwanda in 2017, and my research expertise is also on the reconciliation policies post-genocide Rwanda, especially the peace education curriculum, which is the national curriculum of the country. Since 2017, I have taken around 50 students to Kigali, and traveled there personally for research and otherwise about a dozen times. So I feel that I've got pretty extensive experiences in Kigali. And I can certainly speak to the opportunities for learning from Rwandans from a professional and policy perspective. I have very much witnessed residents mirror the peace-building policies of the country, which are oriented with restorative justice and social cohesion at the heart of the peace-building policies. My experiences, as well as I think I can speak anecdotally about my students' experiences, have been across the board positive in the city. And just from a statistical perspective, Rwanda has made just massive, enormous progress since the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. The social indicators such as educational attainment, GDP, measures of safety and security rank the top in the continent. And beyond that, just my personal connecting points with people in Kigali have been hospitable, kind. We have really witnessed these policies go into place from a person-to-person perspective. So with that, I fully support this resolution. I think Kigali would be a wonderful next step for the city of Cleveland.
Thank you. Just very briefly, what is the GDP of Rwanda? And then number two, what is their biggest industry that we could potentially work with? And what are we looking at exporting? What are they looking at exporting to us? What's the opportunity?
I can't give an exact GDP number. I'd have to look at the actual statistics. But in terms of exports from Rwanda, we're looking at tea and coffee, but tourism is the main industry that brings visitors to Rwanda.
Awesome. Okay. I have Councilman Mike Polisic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My honorable colleagues, I certainly support this initiative. My only, I guess, rubber question is, and I've raised this in the past, I'm going to continue to raise it. We pass all these sister city relationships, and I know in the time I've been here, I either sponsored or co-sponsored most probably a dozen of them, if not more. But nothing ever happens. We pass these relationships, and they might look good on paper that we have this but nothing ever transpires. It's like, what happens? Do we get any visitors here? Do any of our folks go there? Do we do any exchanges? Do we do any business? I mean, it's great to do this. I look at in my office, the plaques and things I've got from doing these sister city relations with countries in Europe, but nothing ever happens as a result of it. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I don't expect you to, either defend or explain. But I'm hoping that when you leave here, especially with Global Cleveland, that something more happens than just saying we got a sister city relationship with Uganda, a city in Uganda. That's all.
I completely understand that point. I want to say that with these new sister cities, and with sister cities in general, with Global Cleveland, we are looking to bring to you the things that are already being done under sister cities. There are bridges that exist.
Okay.
There are exchanges of knowledge, students, diplomats, business. But the problem is getting that information here, letting it be known. And I think this new initiative, reinvigorating the sister city relationships that we have, I want to put a stamp of sister cities on each deal that is made, each delegation that is sent, that it is because of sister cities. It is because of city-to-city relationships.
Okay.
Because I know they exist. Kent State and their center in Kigali exist right now. And I want some of that success to be known by the city of Cleveland for potential future investment, perhaps, or just so that we know how far our international footprint actually goes. And I completely understand, and we are working on activating our current sister cities, and we're also evaluating if they're not working, if they are dead in the water, which many of them are, we are activating the ones that will work. And that was part of my focus for these 3 African sister cities. I activated the networks that exist, are flourishing, and can bring more to Cleveland.
Okay. Well, again, I know we have a lot on our calendar, so I'm not going to belabor the point. I appreciate that. obviously communicate to the council president, the clerk, and all members of the council, so we understand what those exchanges are, what information is being shared, because we want these to work.
Yes.
We want them to be more than just a name of a sister city relationship. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and that's one of the reasons I asked that question is because one of the things that I've learned with local governments, and we meet with a lot of delegations, is that we transcend a lot of the national politics. We just want to figure out who can come and do business with us.
Yeah.
And if COVID didn't reveal anything else, it revealed how we can have a need to bring more traded sector jobs and have those kind of things port side. So hopefully we can really make this flourish, okay? Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1018-2023 stands approved. And I believe we're going to be having a ceremony with all three of those sister cities in December.
Yes, I believe it will be in December. I am currently ironing out all of the various player schedules at the moment, but there will be a signing ceremony in December.
Please make sure that all of council members are here.
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
And can all council members be added to this resolution? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working with you. Thank you. Please make sure we all are there for the ceremony.
Of course.
All right, thank you. All right, next up is ordinance number 1093-2023, as amended by council members McCormick, Hairston, Bishop, and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the directors of Public Works and Community Development to enter into one or more lease and/or management agreements with Cleveland Public Market Corporation and Ohio Nonprofit Corporation to lease the West Side Market parking lot, and the Hicks parking lot, and to provide professional services to manage, operate, and improve these properties, I think it's a typo, and assist with capital improvement, fundraising, and funding from available tax credits for the improvement of the West Side Market. Authorizing other agreements, authorizing the Director of Public Works to apply for and accept any gifts, grants, or services from any public or private entity, and to amend sections 131.21, 131.2022, 131.78, and repeal Chapter 553 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by various ordinances relating to the West Side Market. And I will read an amendment. The amendment is as follows. This legislation is marked approved, authorizing the Director of Public Works and Director of Community Development to enter into one or more lease and/or, there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In the title, line 9, strike the D's, the grammatical mistake, and insert D. Number 2, in section 2, at the end of the section, add the following: RQS 7005 RLA 2023-97. This was done on, this amendment was made 10/6/23 by Stephanie Melnick, Chief Assistant Director of Law. And after I hear your presentation, I do believe that Councilman Bishop, upon having this discussion in the Municipal Services Committee, does have some recommendations for further amendments. But please proceed, and I know the people at the table, but everyone, if you can introduce yourself so all of my colleagues get it.
Of course, thank you so much. My name is Jessica Trevisano. I'm the mayor's senior strategist focused on West Side Market.
Good afternoon. Ahmed Abunama, Finance Director.
And I'm Dave Abbott. I'm the president of the new nonprofit, the Cleveland Public Market Corporation.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to just go through a quick presentation. This legislation is intended to accomplish a couple key goals. One is to permit the city to enter a lease and management agreement with nonprofit Cleveland Public Market Corporation. It authorizes the city to provide $200,000 to the nonprofit for operating support for this year. Any future support will need to come to council annually for approval. It provides legal authority for the city and the nonprofit to access tax credits, and it adjusts existing legislation, which will allow the nonprofit to exercise control over West Side Market. So I know we've done a lot of conversations about West Side Market. I've been in this role for going on 2 years. We met in July to kind of go through the master plan before it was presented to the community. But I wanted to really touch on 2 key important objectives for why we're making this transition. One is by transitioning the operation of the West Side Market to a nonprofit, and I'll emphasize it's just the operation. The city will still own the building. We'll be able to access capital for this historic city asset that the city isn't able to access on its own. So that's things like fundraising, sponsorship, tax credits, which I'll get into in a bit, and new sources of operational revenue, such as through events and parking. The second really important thing, and the important reason that we're making this transition, is so that we can have a board and a staff that are focused on maximizing West Side Market's potential for the city. So that means expanding its programmatic reach so that there's programs around food access and entrepreneurship and education that reach all of Cleveland citizens, and making sure that we have staff that can really support the 70-plus small independent grocery businesses in the market and the 800,000-plus customers that walk through its doors every year. The next piece I want to talk about is this lease. So what we're asking for is authorization to negotiate a lease and a management agreement. We talked a lot this morning at Municipal Services and Properties Committee about council oversight and the ways that council can really be involved in that leasing process. I want to mention that, so this first iteration, what we have before you today, is asking for $200,000 in operating support. After that, the nonprofit is going to have to come to the city every year to ask for additional financial support. And it's in the council's oversight committee meetings that I would anticipate the nonprofit coming with a list of metrics and objectives and things that it's doing to prove that it's performing for the market the way that it needs to. Otherwise, I wouldn't expect council to appropriate money to the entity, because if it's not doing what it needs to do, why would you appropriate money to it? Some of those community benefits are things like increasing the diversity of tenants at the market, making sure that vendors are involved in the governance model for the market, integrating workforce development programs into its operations, looking at food access programs and making sure that it's expanding its reach for food access programs, supporting small businesses, operating the market consistent with best practices for similar public markets. These are all baked into the draft terms of the agreement. And to make those really kind of crystal clear, we won't go through each of these, but these are objective metrics that we've already identified to show that, the market will be performing these on these objectives that we've laid out. So not just assuring council and the administration that it's going to be meeting these objectives, but having these, metrics that we'll actually be able to track over time to make sure that the market is fulfilling its duties. The next piece that this piece of legislation does is it speaks to tax credits. We think that there's somewhere between $10 and $13 million available to fund capital improvements through tax credits. This is dollars that will not be accessible to the city if this market maintains its status as being city operated. We need to have the nonprofit in place to access these dollars, and this is $13 million that will help support a city-owned asset that will really open the door for a lot of improvements for the market. And then last, I just want to mention there's a bunch of changes that are kind of listed throughout that just tweak the codified ordinances. So it's things like the current codified ordinances say that the city shall appoint a market manager. With the nonprofit operating the market, the city might not need a market manager, so we're changing that shall to a may, making those little tweaks throughout just to make sure that the nonprofit has the authority it needs to make decisions for the market, since it's also taking responsibility for the market. We also discussed in MSP this morning kind of the formal terms of the agreement. In the briefing packets every council member received in September included like a 14-page draft of terms. We talked this morning about, between these meetings and when those final terms go to Board of Control, making sure that council has an opportunity through its chairs to take a look at those terms. With that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, do you have anything you'd like to add or in the opening comments before we dive into questions?
Thank you, Councilman, but I don't know that I could add anything at this point, really, other than the fact that the board of the new nonprofit is an entirely volunteer group of people. We're eager to take on the task. There's some trepidation because we know there is risk involved. The market needs an awful lot of repair and a lot of addition and improvement for it to operate sustainably and to achieve the metrics that are in the information. But we're eager to take it on. We're excited, enthusiastic, and we think with your backing, we can be successful.
Well, and we appreciate your volunteerism and stepping up and getting a whole $0 paycheck to do this work. But the community really appreciates your expertise and your commitment to the city and your history that you bring to the market. It's extremely important. So, Mr. Chairman, they just finished their opening presentation.
Great. So just a couple of things. And listen, I know this has been vetted. And first of all, I echo what Councilman McCormick said. I think you guys have done a great job really repurposing and realigning the market so that we can have the best bang for what we're trying to do. I know the market is an extremely valuable asset for the city of Cleveland, and I'm really hoping that this nonprofit structure can really help it accomplish and achieve all of its true promise that it has there. That being said, I do have a couple of questions. How much are we losing in parking lot revenue? Because I know that in the past, that parking lot revenue used to come directly to the city of Cleveland. If you, Ms. Trevisano, or the finance director can let us know, because that now, let me make sure that I'm clear, will now go towards the coffers of the West Side Market and not towards the general fund. So what is that amount yearly, annually?
Yeah, to the chair, the annual revenue generated from that lot right now is usually around $100,000, and almost all of that goes right back into the maintenance of the lot.
That's what I
During
thought.
COVID, for a couple of years, it lost money, and so not only would this transition sort of the revenue would be going to the nonprofit corporation, but so would the responsibility for maintaining the lot. So, we would lose that revenue, but also lose those expenses, which are high.
So the trade-off is basically they'll be handling the maintenance, which
Snow
basically takes it
removal.
off of our books.
Correct.
And all of those things. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to make sure is, and this is just being, I don't like to say devil's advocate, I'll just say council advocate, okay? What if this doesn't work? Do we have any provisions or do we have anything? Because this is too valuable of an asset. And is this an open-ended process? Or if we see after a period of time what gives council the recourse to say, hey, this is not working, we need to pull this back into the city portfolio.
Yeah, so to the councilman, in the lease agreement, similar to what is baked in with the Highland agreement and other sort of, lease and management agreements, there are certainly levers to pull if the nonprofit is not performing. So I mentioned some of these metrics. These are really clear, black and white. Are they meeting them? Are they not meeting them? That would allow the city council to pull the lever and say, this isn't working. We need to terminate the agreement. We hope we never get there, right? We want the nonprofit to be successful, and I think that the nonprofit will be, far more successful at running the market than the city has ever been, but there are certainly outs in the agreement.
Okay. All right. Now, this is going to be a question I just want to make sure I understand. When we start to transition it over to the nonprofit, I know me and Mr. Abbott has had a very deep, detailed conversation, but is the city still going to be on the hook for some of the maintenance dollars? I just want to make sure that the public knows that just because it's nonprofit doesn't mean that the city is just walking away. We still have some obligations. I just want to also make sure that we lose all oversight, but don't have any, but still have all of the obligations. How are we sharing the pain?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. So to the chairman and the rest of the council, the city will still have some financial obligations with respect to the market. As the capital repairs and improvements are put in place over the next several years, which will enable the market to operate on better financial footing. It is our expectation that the city's financial obligation with respect to the market will go down and presumably to zero at some point when the market is able to operate in a more sustainable financial manner. We will also remain oversight through the terms of the lease agreement, the performance benchmarks that will be included in there. And as we ensure that the nonprofit is operating the market effectively and consistent with and we're getting out of this arrangement what we expect. Very similar to the Highland Golf Course arrangement where, we have this longer-term arrangement. We have clear performance benchmarks that they need to hit, and if they don't hit them, we have a variety of tools, a variety of rights in that agreement to terminate if they're not fulfilling what they are expected to do, and it will be the same here.
Is that coming before council for regular oversight, and I'm going to point to Councilman McCormick and Councilman Bishop because that may be something that I encourage them to look at, but I just know that is that an administration lever to pull, or is that a councilmatic lever that we need to be able to understand and pull?
So I think in administering the contract itself, that would be on the administration side. But that's not to say that council, as part of its normal oversight function, cannot have oversight hearings of Public Works, which kind of is ultimately responsible for the market, and of the nonprofit itself. There's no reason why council could not call whoever's hired as the executive director of the market to come and give presentations and be subjected to oversight. There will be sort of the normal ways that council is able to oversee our administration of contracts and vendors. That will not go away with this arrangement.
Thank you. Last question, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Councilman Bishop and Councilman McCormick. Diversity at the market. I know I have a lot of vendors that happen to be in my ward, like Capos and others, that want to try to come over into the market, and I think can do a great job, as well as we just heard about the tea and coffee trade coming from Kigali. How do we make sure that we have a more Of course, we don't want to take away from the fabulous Villa Hispana, which is going to have a diverse option of things right down the street. But how do we diversify the vendors, and how do we make sure that the market has all of these diverse vendors and products, and how is that working?
Yeah, to the chair, I'm glad you brought up Capo's cheesesteaks because he's the one I always think about. He's so consistent.
Muhammad needs to go.
He calls me every 3 months to say, "Are you ready for me yet? Are you ready for me?" So
Great business.
Exactly. At the core of this entire master plan is thinking about how do we start to accommodate vendors who want to come into the market who right now I don't have a space to offer him, right? I don't have a space that's code compliant with an exhaust fan where I could say, yes, you can open in this space. So at the core of this master plan, we're trying to think about how to retool the spaces in the market so we can be, a turnkey place for more vendors to open up in the market. So that's one. In the short term, and we talked about this a little bit this morning, I think it's thinking about the nonprofit having staff capacity to do more pop-up events and to do more incubation. And we've already been having conversations with Centrovia to talk about, how do we work together, right? We're on the same corridor. We need to make sure that we're growing the pot and not, shrinking it. And so I think it's really at the core of the entire master plan is thinking about how to diversify vendors, make the whole market feel welcoming to everybody, and to make it a place that really reflects the diversity of Cleveland, because it reflects in so many ways the diversity that Cleveland had in 100 years ago, but hasn't kept pace with the richness of Cleveland today.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, those pop-up shops and those kind of vendors and things, because Cleveland was built off of, I talked to some of my good friends from the Little Italy community, and I talked to some of my good friends from the Arab American community. They say, hey, my family started with a fruit stand, and then we just evolved and moved here, there, and everything else. And we know we still have a big problem with food insecurity. And I think it's been a catastrophe of what we've seen happen at the East Side market. For some reason, we just can't make that work the right way. I don't think it's your responsibility, but as I had a conversation with Mr. Abbott, I hope that we can enlist the West Side market and the soldier of armies to really try to address food insecurity in some of the deserts that we have across the city, because I'm tired of discount donuts and onions and canned goods popping up everywhere and not having real good quality markets. So at some point in time, I hope we look at how we can increase some of those pop-up opportunities and really try to engage with some of those, hard-to-hit areas that don't really have access to. I'm a foodie, so I love those kind of markets. Even though I know sometimes they get upset with me, I love the West Side Market. So I just hope that we could keep
You
that
get upset
stuff.
with all of us.
Yeah, it's part of. Listen, half the city's mad at me half the time. I care less. But anyway,
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad you hear you say that. The
half the city's mad at me half the time.
no, that part I knew. Right at the top of the list of the things that get us enthused about taking on this task is the opportunity to diversify the vendors and to have an impact well beyond the walls of the building. There's tremendous upside potential to the market's reach across the city, addressing food insecurity issues, addressing education, addressing entrepreneurship. I mean, there are just so many things that I think can be done. It'll take time, it'll take effort, take resources, but we certainly have the commitment and enthusiasm, and I'm confident we can do it.
I am too. I just see a lot of potential. I want to commend my colleague as I turn it over to Councilman Kevin Bishop. I want to commend my colleague, Kerry McCormick. I know that he's been advocating for this structure for a long time, and we're finally here. So I know this is one of those things in politics where you finally see the baby born, that he's happy to see it born today. So I want to commend him. But I'm going to go to Councilman Bishop, Councilman McCormick, Councilman Pulisic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this morning we vetted this piece of legislation in the Municipal Services Committee. And this piece of legislation passed out of the committee, but it was one thing that was clear that was made by several of the members in the committee is that we want to codify coming back to council for approval for this final lease, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, if I may, can I make an amendment?
Attorney Roberts, are you ready for this amendment?
I am, Council President.
Please proceed, Councilman Bishop.
In Section 3, at the end, at the very end, the term of the lease and management agreements and fair market value shall be determined by a board of control and approved by the legislative branch, or however it may be worded, so we can have some oversight, or we can at least have this thing codified so they can come back to council for the final agreement.
So you have that, Mr. Roberts?
I have his sentiments of what.
He can reiterate it if you need him to. Do you need him to say it again so that he could? In essence, he wants the approval to come back to council for. Could you repeat that again, Councilman
The
Bishop?
term of the lease management agreements and fair market value shall be determined by the board of control with proper legislative authority. To come back to city council for legislative authority.
You got that, Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, so an amendment has been proffered. Do we have a motion on the floor for amendment? Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a second from Councilman Hairston. Discussion, Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to understand this. Is this saying that we would give the administration authority to enter into the lease with the nonprofit, but then they come back again to us? I'm trying to understand what this is.
Councilman Bishop, you want to go ahead again?
Well, Mr. President, essentially this is the last stop for the piece of legislation
Right.
for City Council if we approve this as it stands today. We do want to be involved when the deal is struck to be able to give our authority or our weigh in on this on the final terms of the lease once it's drawn up. This is not meant for them to have to come back to the council every year for legislative authority to do or to operate the West Side Market, but just for the when we finally do sign the final agreement, we want to be able to weigh in on this piece of this is a very important asset that we have in the city of Cleveland.
So let me make sure I can clarify that language too, because I think Councilman Bishop is doing what we do with a lot of other pieces. Sometimes we get pieces of legislation that makes the last stop the Board of Control. And once it hits the Board of Control, it doesn't have to come back to council. And we've been very cognizant to make sure that we don't abdicate this council's authority to be able to approve or disapprove of a lease or something of that nature. Is that what you're trying to accomplish, Councilman?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, my 8 years of council, generally what we do historically is we authorize the administration to negotiate a deal with whoever that party is. I think it's rare if I've ever seen having to come back to council after negotiation. So I'm just curious as to why this is different. I don't want to slow down this process. Our community's been waiting years to get this done. I'd be curious, Chief, through the chairman, would this slow the process down? I mean, that's the question.
Through the chair to the council, yes. So, this, because of the nature of this ordinance, it hits development planning, municipal services, and finance. And depending on where we fit in the calendar, it could take from intro to going through the committee process and passage 2+ weeks.
And through the chair to the chief, generally, am I wrong in saying generally we provide legislative authority to enter into agreements and then we don't bring stuff back after that step?
Yeah, through the chair. Typically, we request legislation from council to authorize entering into a contract with a concrete provider, an accounting firm, whatever the case might be. And then with that authority, we enter into that agreement. That agreement is approved by the Board of Control, and that is the role of the Board of Control in the charter. I would note that in the materials that Jessica has provided since September, there is a lengthy draft term sheet which lays out the sort of parameters within which we are approaching this agreement. And I think we're not intending to depart from that framework. I mean, there might be some give and take in the negotiation, as there always is. But we are hoping that we can treat this arrangement as we typically would when we request the authority to enter into a contract from council.
And Chairman, did we do this with Highland or?
Through the chair, no.
No. Okay. So, Chair, I would just say that I've been intimately working with the administration as the ward representative for the West Side Market on this deal. On setting up the structure of this. This is the first time I'm hearing that we wanted to bring it back after we already give them legislative authority. If there are pieces of the legislative authority that we want to ensure are in there, I think that's one thing. But again, I've been working intimately for 10+ years on this, and most recently for 2 with the administration as the Ward 3 council member in which the West Side Market lies. And so I don't want to slow this process down. If there are specific concerns about the legislation, I think it's one thing.
That's what I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, I don't know
If I could, because here's what I would like to do. And I know I do this often, okay? I would like if I'll call Mike, I'll table the discussion on this for a moment. I would love for you and Councilman Bishop to just make sure you have a sidebar so that you guys can see what he's trying to accomplish. If I think he's trying to accomplish is to make sure that council is involved and that the deal doesn't look radically different than what we actually were trying to approve. But if you and him could have that kind of sidebar so you can see what I want to accomplish, and then I'll go to Mike Polisic. And then
one question, if I may, just for clarity. I mean, is it a question of we want to see the deal before it's executed, or
Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the chief, did you just say the process probably would add about 2 weeks to this whole thing?
Through the chair, I think minimum. Depending on where we fall on the calendar and when council meetings happen, right? So recess starts December 4th, and so that would, presumably we get authorization today, we work on finalizing the agreement and ideally enter into it before the end of the year. That will be impossible if we have to come back to council after this ordinance. We would need, we have to give the mayor's office 10-day lead to approve us sending ordinances. Then they have to be to council no later than the Thursday before the Monday introduction. then they go through administrative review, and that takes a few days just because it has to go from department to department administratively to be signed off on. It has to be to council by Wednesday afternoon to be assigned to a committee. And so if we miss any of those deadlines, it automatically adds another week to the process, and we are not in control of all of those steps. And so it would add, just given where we are in the year, certainly beyond the end of the year. And probably if we miss a week, probably after budget hearings, because, budget sort
And
of
that-
takes
that's part of
precedence
my
in early
concern,
February.
yeah, is the budget. Chairman, I would
Okay,
just-
through the chair. Yeah, through the chair. I mean, I do admit that it may add on a couple of weeks, but if we're looking at a long-term view of the West Side market, trying to fix the West Side market long-term, Mr. President, I don't see how 2 or 3 weeks is relevant to our long-term strategy when it comes to the West Side market. I mean, the nonprofit, the West Side nonprofit, wants a long-term lease to establish the West Side market with a vision that they see fit, and that's long-term. So to rush the council to try to clip off 2 to 3 weeks of this deal, I think, Mr. President, is not very relevant at this point in time. But Mr. President, I'm just expressing the sentiments of other members about how we want to be engaged in the West Side market. We want to get this thing right, and to add to put our legislative authority in this piece, I don't think is a big game changer here, Mr. President.
And I do think that that's why I kind of want you and Councilman McCormick to have a brief conversation, because I think that there's a sweet spot there. I think that basically what Councilman Bishop is saying is, how do we stay involved in the process? How do we not legislate ourselves as a council out of the process? And I think that's something that, both of you guys can have a conversation and let me know how that works
And
out.
through-
I'll go to Councilman Polinsky and then come back, but you can give a point.
Yeah, to the chairman and the council, one thing we did discuss during this morning's hearing was giving a briefing to Councilman Bishop and any other councilman that would want information before the Board of Control. But I do want to reiterate a point that we made earlier, is that what we're talking about is the administration of a contract. And, I take the respective roles of council and the administration very seriously, and this is, entering into agreements under and within the parameters of legislative authority is exactly what we're here to do on our side of the table.
I totally understand that, and I always try to respect and make sure that we're not overreaching as council into the administrative duties and responsibility with a very sensitive and strong asset like the West Side market. It brings upon a heightened sense of oversight by council. And I know that sometimes people don't like that extra week or 2 weeks it might take to go through, but council takes our oversight role very seriously, and with an asset like the West Side market, we just want to make sure we're being thorough in our concept. But I do want to give Councilman Harrison a very quick point, and then once I give him a point, then I'll go back to Councilman Polinsky and then bring in our two colleagues.
Mr. Chair, I'll be brief. So earlier during the discussion, part of why the amendment was raised by Councilman Bishop is because, as you've heard, there's no legitimate real levers that council can pull should we want to change course on what we agreed to. Board of Control is the last stop. We hear the fact that, we will have to appropriate a annual level of support for the market. Besides our annual appropriation to support the market, there's no other real levers that council has to pull once this is done. Once the lease is set, it is set and is only been controlled by the administration. And that's where the concern came in, that council has no leverage, as we've done on the lakefront development, as we've done on sites, as we've done on other big pieces that we've passed over the past few months. There was opportunities for pieces to come back to this body either through a sunset clause, through whether it's an annual review, whether it's subsequent renewals, and so forth, that gives this body some level of protection and not relying on the administration to be that level of protection for us should there be concerns regarding any piece that we cede our authority on. I mean, this, again, you said it yourself, and as Councilman Bishop mentioned, after this is it. We remove ourselves from the process. And the issue that came up again earlier is that more and more this is being asked of us. remove yourselves, remove yourselves, remove yourselves. We'll come back and give you an update. Again, this is not just about this piece, but, you know, a culmination of pieces that has been introduced and asked this body to support over a number of months. And so that's the reason for Councilman Bishop's amendment was to find a way to, instead of having them come back annually, but to at least see the final agreement and require them to have our approval before they go out, to have some level of security about, you know, what is taking place and what the agreement is going to be.
And if I'm not mistaken, even with Highland, there was like a step down in the amount of subsidy that we were planning on putting into it. If I'm not, I might be misspeaking, but I think it was so even if it was some kind of way to see how we're matriculating out of that, I think that's something that why council has a little bit of the, but I do want to do this. I hear your comment,
Yes.
and then once I hear your comment,
Thank you.
it looks
Chairman,
like
on that point.
Councilman McKim.
Mr. Chairman, on that point?
Yes.
What you just said, Mr. Chairman, I do want to back up what you just said. They laid out a step down after 5 years. You know, the subsidy was going to be drastically reduced. So they did give us a plan. They did give us basically a short-term plan where they were going to have a certain level of performance, and our subsidies would be eased in this. But in this case, it's a totally different thing. We don't have any kind of pro forma saying that, hey, our subsidies in year 1 is going to be the same as year 4, year 5, and year 6. We don't know what our subsidy is going to be. So that's going to be determined by the administration. So, but with the Highland Golf Course, we laid out a plan where our subsidies would be pretty much not needed after the 5th year.
Through the chairman to the council, I'd say respectfully, a pro forma was provided in September, laying out several years of projections
For West Side Market.
revenues and expenses for the market, and they absolutely do assume that as improvements are made at the market and it's able to generate more rents, that the city's general fund subsidy will go down and presumably to zero.
But that's
Which is,
on that
to be clear, is not the case with Highland Golf Course, because Highland Golf Course is simply a management agreement. So with Highland Golf Course, we are on the hook no matter what. With this agreement, we will be able to say at some point in the future, this is a lease. You are effectively, we remain the owner legally, but effectively when you have a lease, it's your apartment when you lease an apartment. You know, the owner doesn't have a right to come in and tell you what to do. We will be able to say to the nonprofit manager at some point, it's yours. You're on the hook, which is very different from Highland. If Highland continues to lose money for the next 30 years, doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit running it or if it's a city, we have to pay that bill.
I was just going to note too, if I'm correct, the annual market subsidies every year have to be authorized by this body. So this body has to say yay or nay on $1 of subsidy, on $1 million, on 200. I mean, so we hold total authority over the subsidy, which I don't think that this legislation would override that.
Ms. Trevisano?
Sure, thank you.
Subject to appropriation.
You're correct, Councilman. So I just want to kind of step back a little bit and talk through how we got to this process. So I was appointed by Mayor Bibb in early 2022 and have been working on West Side Market since. I know I've come before council multiple times to talk about the strategy for the market, kind of the direction of the market. My understanding has been that council has been on board with the idea of a nonprofit taking responsibility for West Side Market. In July of 2023, about half of council members, I think, went to a caucus meeting where we walked through kind of step-by-step slides of the master plan for the market, the capital plan, the pro forma for the market. I know I've sent a lot of emails offering one-on-one conversations, those presentations. This piece of legislation was introduced September 25th. And with that, I submitted both paper and digital copies of briefing materials. Those materials included draft terms, which shows that we're proposing $700,000 subsidy that steps down every kind of step of the way. And I think that, those terms, what we'll end up with at Board of Control will be substantially similar to the terms that this body has had 6 weeks to review. I'm more than happy to kind of walk through before we get to Board of Control to explain any changes to those draft terms. But I do want to say, this has taken I mentioned, we introduced this in September 25th. It's now November, 15th? So it's taken some time to get to this body. And there's some real implications to delaying this management agreement. One is we have an executive director candidate who's just waiting for the authority for this nonprofit to have in order for her to accept an offer. She can't really start working on the market to get us ready for the transition until this council has given the nonprofit the authority to lease the market. So that's one. The longer we wait, the longer we have city staff who have been so devoted to West Side Market despite this weird transition time, the longer they hang in the balance, and that makes me, they don't deserve that. They deserve clarity and predictability as soon as possible. It prevents the nonprofit from fundraising, so the sooner, the longer it takes for the nonprofit to get this authority, the longer it's going to take for them to start fundraising. And I know we're talking about, is this a 2-week delay? Is this a 6-week delay? But when we bring the term sheet to council, if council's asking for final sign-off, it could create this never-ending cycle of council wants to change a term, we have to bring it back to the nonprofit attorneys. Council wants to change a term, we have to bring it back to the attorneys. I'm not sure that I see a clear end for this transition if this proposed amendment goes forward.
So I think Councilman McCormick and Councilman Bishop had a brief sidebar. Did you guys have a conversation?
We did, Mr. Chairman, and really the conversation around how do you ensure the council remains involved in the process, is the I don't know that we came to a clear kind of solution on that, but Chairman, I guess I'm wondering, is there a way in which council can have a role in that process? I don't know the legality of negotiating a lease and who is or is not permitted to be a part of that process, but is there a way that council can remain involved in that process without having to, delay the...
Any thoughts?
I'll tell you, I've been involved with the process for my entire 8 years on council, and then prior to that, in my prior job, so I'm comfortable with where we are today after having studied this for over a decade. But I want to ensure that members, too, if there's concern, that council can be involved without having to slow the process that many folks in the community have been waiting for a long time.
Don't we have board seats on this?
Are we on board control?
Well,
No, I mean board seats on the West Side.
Yes, so
You're
council
looking at
president,
one.
you got a seat and you put me on it.
You're on it, right, okay. All right. Councilman Bishop, do you have anything you want to add there? Before I go to, I'm going to finish the discussion so we can move to either accept or dismiss the motion. I want to make sure we finalize that.
So what's the question, Mr. President?
Just, you still got the motion on the table, and Councilman McCormick is trying to give you another opportunity to see what else we could do, because I think he has concerns that if this has to come back to council, that it may delay the process. But you have a motion on the floor. Either we can move to vote for it, continue to have discussion, or we can table it. It's up to you.
Mr. President, I'm comfortable to voting for it.
Okay?
Can I just,
Sure,
is there
go
a
ahead.
way, Chairman, so obviously the council could repeal this piece, push comes to shove. Is there a way to delay an official signing of the lease until our next, if the city comes to terms with the Board of Control in December, our first meeting back is the first week of January. In theory, that first week of January, we could repeal this piece if we're not comfortable with the terms. I'm just trying to
Roberts.
figure out, I understand that there's an interest to have emergency stop button.
Mr.
right?
Robert?
But
If I could,
Or
through the chair, if I could, I think the legal issues with repealing an ordinance that authorized a contract that is in effect raises.
well, it wouldn't be in effect if
raises-
it wasn't signed through the chair.
Correct. I think that would put us in the same position of having to just go through the normal legislative process, because the council can only act as a body. So,
Right.
and that only happens through an ordinance.
So, Chairman, my point there is, between now and the first week of January, if council is apprised of what the terms are of the final contract, and if there's comfort there's comfort, God bless, no further action needed. If for some reason, which I don't anticipate, there's some glaring problem, Mr. Chairman, I would just say again, this isn't my ward. I've worked for a decade on this. I've worked intimately with the administration, intimately with vendors, intimately with this board. I am comfortable with where we are. I don't dig my head in, critical issues in other wards because I trust the council member to do that. And I agree on everything that was said leading up today. Folks, remember, I was the one hounding Mike Cox about diversity at the West Side Market for the last 8 years. It was me doing that. So no shade on Mike Cox, love Mike Cox. But the point is that we've been having this conversation for a long time. And I'm comfortable, again, understanding that we have shared very serious values around diversity, financial sustainability, all that we've talked about at this table. This is the first time hearing about bringing it back at this hearing today, and this is in my ward. So, generally, I should have heard about that if that was an idea before 2 p.m. council meeting.
On that point, we still having discussion for this, Councilwoman Santana.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's just out of discussion. I'm curious to know, because I'm sorry, I'm not understanding this whole conversation, to be candid, but what happens if we're not here, the passionate people about, that are implementing diversity and nonprofit? Like, what happens if council members are not here? Does that still hold strong? Does that move forward? Could another colleague come in and change the process, I guess, the legislation that's in place?
Yeah, to the council woman through the chair, the agreement that we've been talking about will bake in these performance metrics and these requirements for the nonprofit that with the goal
Regardless.
to stand the test of time, right? When I'm not working on this, when you're not working on this, these are the values that will be ingrained. They're measurable. They're things that we expect the nonprofit to be reporting not only to the city, but also to council on an annual basis.
Got it. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right, we're going, Spencer, Councilwoman Spencer?
Chair, I'm not sure if this is exactly on point with where we are at this point in the discussion. So I think the point Councilman McCormick made is really important, that ultimately during budget hearings, council would appropriate funding for the market. I'm trying to better understand the interplay between what the city is obligated to do for the market through any agreement. We talked about maintenance obligations and other financial obligations. Is there like a minimum threshold that we're obligated? Sorry, I didn't bring the binder with me today. Ms. Trevisano prepared materials for us, but just wanting to better understand the interplay between. I think that's the ultimate accountability is during budget times, are metrics met? Are we appropriating funds to the market? Or what is that interplay between what we're obligated to do and what we have discretion to do when it comes to allocating funding? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
Through the chair.
to the council member through the chair. So we have both the operating budget and the capital budget for the market, right? And council decides how those dollars are spent, right? Both operating and capital through the annual bond and deciding what to prioritize through the capital bond process. So operating wise, that's discretion. Every year we anticipate, until the nonprofit no longer needs to come before the council and ask for support, it would ask for what we have in our pro forma is no more than $700,000 a year, which is what the city put into West Side Market in 2023. Typically, over the past 5 years, that's gone up by $150,000, $200,000 every year. We're planning to keep that stable and have that operating dollars, go down. On the capital side, the nonprofit is taking a lot of responsibility for the market's operation. So we're anticipating that they'll be responsible for maintenance, janitorial services, cleaning. If an elevator breaks, once they have the capital to do so, they'll fix the elevator. It won't be on the city's budget. The responsibility for the overall asset, so the really big, the city's council has made it very clear that the city wants to keep holding on to this asset. It's our responsibility. It's, our legacy asset. So something like the roof, will likely continue to be a city responsibility over time. But those are major, foundational, structural pieces of the building. That would continue to be the city's responsibility. So if anything, the city's responsibility for the building and maintenance over time is less than what it is today.
All right. I'm going to pivot back to Councilman Bishop, and then I'll come back.
Mr. President, I want to withdraw that motion.
All right, so if Councilman Bishop is withdrawing the motion, the only thing that I would ask is that we do have a board seat. I've appointed Councilman McCormick. How can we have some guarantees, or how can we have something to make sure that we got something that you guys are bringing us back, that council has some level of engagement? Or is it just the yearly operation budgetary side that we'll be able to oversee?
I mean, Councilman, I think you all tell me.
Okay.
I think the yearly oversight is kind of baked in, and
Baked into all
the
this.
Will already be part of the cadence of City Council and the administration review. But if there's a higher level of review that needs to happen, I mean, I think it's important for everyone to stay engaged.
And let's make this clear as well, okay? This is a piece of legislation. We could always come back to this and repeal the entire thing if we are not happy with the way things are going. So we could amend, repeal, and come back at it a different way. So what we'll do is we're going to watch this one close. If we see it going in a way where council does not have the proper oversight and we need to amend or repeal, I'm going to ask if our policy staff can make sure that we keep that in the hopper. So that we could do that, because I don't want to beat this to death, and I know that a lot of people have been working a long time to move this down the road, okay? All right, but Councilman Bishop is right. We do want to make sure we continue our oversight process, and especially with something this important. Okay. Councilman Hairston?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I withdraw my second
I got
since
you.
Councilman Bishop withdrew
We
his
still in
his motion. And again, just wanted to offer what conversations took place earlier. But moving on, I'm curious to know how many seats are on this new corporation, Mr. Chair, and how many seats are allocated to city council designation?
So the bylaws of the Code of Regulations for the nonprofit provide there's anywhere between 11 and 20, I want to say 21. Right now, there's 14 people, and City Council has one appointment. The merchants have 3, and the administration has 3.
So the merchants have 3,
Correct.
administration has 3, and the council has 1 currently.
That's correct.
Now, that doesn't sound balanced to me. So, Mr. Chair, I would say, and I'm happy to give my comments to Councilman McCormick. Listen, if at the end of the day, if he's fine, I'll be fine. But, I think that balance is a little bit off, right? We're being asked to just give away any sort of real oversight, right, that we had. And again, if Councilman McCormick is fine, I'll be quiet and, I'll roll with him, right? But I do think there should be some equity there as it relates to these appointments to this corporation. Having 3, and 1, that doesn't sound too good to me. So I'll leave it there.
So Councilman Hairston brings up a good point, and I'm actually looking at the legislation. So the board structure is not embedded in this legislation?
The board is to the chair. The board is an independent nonprofit, so it's not like a commission of the city of Cleveland. It's not a nonprofit that the city of Cleveland has. It's an independent nonprofit. So it would be like many of the other nonprofits the city works with and has appointments to. It's not embedded within
Mr.
the
Chair?
Yes.
legislation.
So I'd look at this as we did with the Lakefront Development Corporation, right? Not sure if that's the right name that we named it, but that division, there was a workout of how the breakdown of appointments would go, between administration, council, and the external players. So, I hear you that it's not a commission or something like that, but there is instances that we can point to that has collaboration between administration, council, and the external partners that allow for more balanced makeup of the folks who are sitting on the corporation. Just my 2 cents.
So
Mr.
here's the question. And I know people like smaller boards, smaller government, less structure. Is it possible, because right now council has 1 seat on the board, is it possible if we could work with council to just make sure that council adds, because as you see, we want to be involved in the future of the market. And I think bringing that additive value only helps you guys. That's my take. I think you can get overwhelming support from council if you just said the head of, the president can assign 2 more board members or something like that, just to make sure that we have a little balance. Because that's what I think Councilman Hairston and Councilman Bishop are asking for. How can we be involved with the future of the market, and how can we have more balance? That's all everybody's asking for.
Yes.
Okay, so Councilman McCormick, Councilman Bishop, Councilman Hairston, are we okay with that?
Mr. Chair, I'm fine. I'm just
So,
trying to
they
be a
just
voice
agree-
in the part of the conversation and get us to a point. If Councilman McCormick is okay, I'm fine.
So we've agreed, I think the whole city of Cleveland has seen that we've agreed to add two for the council side in addition to Councilman McCormick, and we'll work closely with Mr. Abbott to do that. And I think that gives council firmly embedded in the future of the West Side market. Everybody good with that? Good, Ms. Trevisan? Okay, thank you. Councilman Bishop, cool with that? Okay. I had Councilman Pulisic, then Councilman Casey, and I will be right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want you to anchor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues. I was going to say before Councilman Bishop removed his amendment that I think we have enough safeguards in here already to protect the city asset. My question is to Ms. Trevisano or Mr. Abbott with regard to additional 2 appointees of city council. Would you have to change your articles of incorporation to do that?
To the councilman, through the chair, the nonprofit will have to change its articles of incorporation to sort of formalize that it would be, 3 from city council, 3 from the administration.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, the board is authorized up to 21 individual members, and there's no kind of restrictions on where those members come from, so we could move
So
quickly.
again, we're here, and you're telling us at the table that will not be a problem. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. The West Side Market, as I've said here at this table on numerous occasions, has always been very special to me. Place I can remember going there as a child with my grandfather. And it's, when I look at the West Side Market, when I visit it, which I try to get over at least once a week, it really is, to me, what Cleveland represents. It's every race, every religion, every nationality, people with 6-figure incomes and people on public assistance. So I've always enjoyed going there. I've always, I know many of the merchants on a first name basis, and so I appreciate it. And one of my great disappointments here in my tenure here has been, it seems one administration after another has failed the West Side Market, has just put in the wrong people, too many political appointees, never focused on what needed to be addressed at the market. And it was, I often said only the city could screw up something that's 100 years old. And it seemed like they did it repeatedly over the years. And so I'm in support. I've come full circle. I waited impatiently over 4 decades thinking that somehow the city could get its act together. Never did. So now with a nonprofit to take control. My only question is, and again pertains to the subsidy. You indicated in 2022, what was the subsidy we provided?
The subsidy in 2022, we had a little bit of carryover from 21, so on the budget book, it looks a little, it was about $680,000.
Okay, that was the subsidy.
Correct.
And then for 2023, what was it?
Oh, sorry. 680 was this year. The year before, I want to say was, I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but it was in the 500s.
Okay, because I didn't bring my budget book in with me. So you're anticipating that subsidy will diminish over the next 5 years?
That's correct. To the councilman, I mean, we've spent a lot of time on a business plan for the market and
Yeah.
really thinking about how to reimagine the market and how to
Yeah.
get it to the point where it won't require a subsidy, because the healthiest market won't need to rely on the city's
Yeah.
treasury.
And the only thing I would caution you on, because I was just telling them, I didn't get a chance because we were in caucus, I had merchants call me. So I'm assuming they're calling me to lobby me in support. At least I hope they were. So when I get through here, I'm going to go and return their phone calls. But I just want to make sure that we do not create a situation where we force people out by jacking up the rent. That's always been a great concern because we lost a lot of good vendors over the years because they felt that the city wasn't doing its part, and then every time they turn around, rents were going up. And so a lot of the places that I myself frequented are no longer there. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to look, the new nonprofit is not going to look to the quote-unquote merchants to balance them, to save the day at the end, from a financial standpoint. I like what I'm hearing about. You're going to attempt to expand your base of your merchant base. Do everything you can. I caution the last administration. I go to the market because it's the market. I don't go to the market because it's Walgreens or Walmart. I want to make sure it doesn't become that. We're not, the previous administration, they were talking at one time about a vendor selling pots and pans. Give me a break, will you? That's not what the market is for. The market is for that diversity, to provide those food opportunities. And I just want to make sure that remains. But I want to thank my colleague, Councilman Bishop and Hairston and my others, who raised legitimate concerns about making sure that the council has input into the process. Because so often, and I look at the East Side market as a tragedy, what's happened there. It's something we all need to learn from. One bad mistake after another, one bad mistake after another, and now theft. Absolute theft at the East Side market, and it hangs by a thread. It hangs by a thread, and it's been a great disservice to the people in the Glenville neighborhood and beyond. And so I'm optimistic that you folks will get it together, that you'll make the West Side market that jewel, that thing, that place that I've always envisioned from my childhood again, is looking forward, always going there, and seeing that hustle and bustle and the looks on people's faces and that place where people can come together in Cleveland. So I wholeheartedly support the legislation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brian Casey.
Mr. Chairman, may I just
yeah,
say
go
one
ahead.
thing quickly? Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, I just want to say that we all recognize that for the market to succeed, the merchants must succeed.
That's exactly. Glad to hear that.
There's no other way around it.
Good, good.
Thank you. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and Ms. Trevisano, I just got a quick question. At one point, you had indicated in your presentation that there was no need for a manager of the facility anymore. But then later on, you indicated that there's somebody who's going to come in to be, I don't remember your exact words, but because I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds just like a manager of the market. So the question is that, are there any city employees who are losing their jobs over a nonprofit taking over this? And how many city employees were there prior to this conversation, and how many are there now?
To the councilman through the chair. So there are currently 4 full-time city employees, a market manager, a supervisor of markets, a building stationary engineer, and a laborer. At full staff capacity, we have 2 building stationary engineers and 2 laborers. We've tried to advertise for those positions and have not been successful in filling them. There's also an assistant administrator, so 5. Those employees will move into other positions in the Department of Public Works. They are well aware and apprised. They know that they have the opportunity to move over to the nonprofit if that's what they want to do. They have all indicated that they love and want to continue working with the City of Cleveland and so they were given, those opportunities and options.
All right, so Mr. Chairman and Mr. Visano, who will be running the once this nonprofit is up and running and they have authority to run the market, who will be running the day-to-day operations of the market?
To the councilman, through the chair, we have an org chart in the materials, but there will be an executive director of the nonprofit who will work for the board. They will do everything an executive director does, right? Fundraising, manage staff, et cetera. Then there will be an operations manager, an assistant operations manager, a marketing person, because the market's never had marketing support and has really, it's not been great for it. Leasing coordinator, and a development and partnerships manager to help fundraise.
All right, and Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Fasano, all of those individuals will be employed by the nonprofit, correct?
That's correct.
Which means they'll be raising their own money to pay for those. And those 5 individuals who were city employees, they're not losing their jobs. They're being relocated somewhere else into the city. So essentially, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Trevisano, we will have no city employees working at the West Side Market once the nonprofit takes over. Is that correct?
To the councilman through the chair, there's a commissioner of public auditorium and public markets who I anticipate will still be kind of apprised.
He's a commissioner, and he does more than just the market, though.
Of course,
Right,
yeah.
but so I'm talking, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Fasano, there's no day-to-day city employees at the market anymore, correct?
The plan as it currently stands says yes. I mean,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Councilman McCormick, Anchor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And as I did in previous meetings, remind people that it was my friend Blaine Griffin who years ago joined me in the effort of reforming the West Side Market that he didn't talk about enough, and people forget that. So when we had the whole ARPA conversation, I said, remember that Blaine was the one that was with me for a long time, before he was council president, was there for a long time.
Tell my meat guy that. What's his name?
Don Whitaker.
Yeah,
He's
tell
coming
Don
tonight,
Whitaker
I'll tell
that.
him, yeah.
He's watching. Don, tell Don.
He's one of the ones that called.
Listen, he was when we went with the former mayor. We went into his office to talk about the market. Blaine went with me and had my back. So I want to acknowledge that, and I also want to acknowledge Councilman Bishop and Hairston, who very importantly vetted this piece of legislation through their committees. And I think that as we've heard the feedback, it's the marching orders are clear on making sure that feedback and those considerations are incorporated every single step of the way. And I appreciate Mr. Chairman, the addition of the board members. I think that will also go a long way to ensure that council's voice is embedded in the work of the West Side Market. And so I want to thank them for thoroughly vetting this through their committees. And, as we've talked about, diversity and inclusion has got to be core to this, and I know that is a shared value. So I appreciate that. We've got a lot of wonderful businesses across our neighborhoods that I think would really love a shot of being at the West Side Market, which, of course, is good for those businesses, but also great for the market, right? Making sure that we have a diverse set of businesses to draw people in of all different backgrounds. Mr. Chairman, I have, on my 8 long years of council, of you all putting up with me and listening to me going, I've talked a lot about the challenges of the West Side Market. I'm not going to repeat those today at this table. They're very real, and our vendors are the ones that live them the most out of anything. But really what I'm excited about is the opportunity here. We have, for the first time in a very long time, a committed group of folks who are looking to leverage the potential the West Side Market has had for its entire existence, and that we collectively as a society have failed to ensure we reach that potential. And so, we're at this point now after years and years and years of work. 150 years ago, when I started working for Ohio City Incorporated, we were talking about this because the 2012 Centennial Report had come out suggesting that we move towards this type of model in 2012. And that was not the first report that had come out suggesting this type of conversion. So I was working, making 10 cents an hour at Ohio City Incorporated, working on this. So, yeah, open page.
No, your boss is in the audience.
He didn't set my initial pay, so we'll give him that. We'll give him credit for that. He didn't do that. But anyways, the point is that, a lot of folks in our community and across the city of Cleveland, and if you look at the board, you got folks from across the city of Cleveland that sits on that board, are extremely passionate about this market, believe in the potential of what this market can be. And I think one of the most exciting things about the West Side Market is what we already have in it. the vendors, the quality of vendors, the multi-generational vendors, the grandeur of this building, one of the most beautiful markets probably in the world, definitely the United States of America, and the passion of the community around this market. There's so much inherent potential already built in on this market. Being able to fully unlock that, being able to do so in a way wherein 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, we find a market that represents every single neighborhood of the city of Cleveland, every single folks of all different backgrounds, that is bustling, that is activated, that is getting the physical repairs that it needs, that is seeing customer increases to support our vendors. We can get there. We can get there in the short, mid, and long term. And I think that, this approach of bringing in good people who are volunteers, committing their times to ensure its well-being is going to go a long, long way, Mr. President. And, as we've said at this table, the market today, tomorrow, and for the next 500 years should be owned by the citizens of the city of Cleveland. That should never change. The city of Cleveland and the citizens of the city of Cleveland should always own the West Side Market. And I think over everyone's, dead bodies here, that will always be the case. But I am confident, Mr. Chairman, that potential that lies within the market can be unlocked with this type of structure that we're discussing here today, that many other cities have already adopted, and will allow the market the breathing room to thrive while still ensuring that City Council in the city of Cleveland is heavily involved in that process. So I'm fully supportive of this legislation. I want to thank Jessica Trevisano. She was given an impossible task to navigate all the personalities that float around the West Side Market. She came in here diligently. She could be a corporate lawyer making a ton of money. She chose this line of work, really, and I'm so appreciative that she has dove into this work and has taken this job on by the horns and really done a masterful job of balancing all the perspectives and all of the personalities and all of the agendas of folks to get us to a point where I don't think we've seen this type of consensus or cooperation on the market in decades. And so I really want to recognize her and her efforts to do that. A lot of hours put in, a lot of sleepless nights, and our chairman too for stepping up to the plate and really leading the board in the good, the bad, the waves, and all that to get us here to this point. But again, Mr. Chairman, appreciate the robust conversations had at this table. That's what we're here for. And I said it in caucus today, Mr. Chairman, your leadership, you've brought these robust, important discussions to the citizens, to the public. And I think that's what sometimes folks don't understand, is even when there's passion here and even when there's disagreement, we have those conversations. We do it in an open way that the community can see, because it's important that those types of things are hashed out before we move forward. So again, want to thank everybody that got us to this point. Appreciate my colleagues' support on this piece of legislation, and I know that this is just the beginning of the future of the West Side Market. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we'll be remiss if we didn't thank you and the leadership that you showed on this. And I tell people that, it's legislation and working things through this body is hard, and working things through City Hall is hard. It's always a lot of give and take, a lot of compromise that has to take place and everything else. And I know that it took a long time to make it happen, but appreciate what you did, okay? And we're going to continue to work. As we said, council wants to be intimately involved in the future of the market. So I know that I talk with Mr. Abbott quite often, but if you can make sure that you and Councilman Bishop and Councilman McCormick and all you guys, because I really want them to have an intimate understanding of where we're headed with the market, so that it's more than just me understanding, okay? And congratulations, Ms. Trevisano. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1093-2023 as amended stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm allowed back out to the market now. I'll go with you. Okay, you'll go with me. Be my bodyguard. Be my bodyguard now. All right. We have two more guests that I'm going to hear their piece of legislation, and first is Kevin Hudson, and then I'm going to hear, that's 1153-2023, and then we're going to hear 1156-2023, and that's my good friend Tanisha Gant Watson. But let's hear Kevin Hudson first, 1153 2023. I always like to hear the guest first. Let me find this piece. Where we at? Aeneas? Where we at? 11:53. I don't see it. Oh, see if it's over there. 10:53. There it is. Okay. All right. Ordinance number 1053-2023. We're going to try to make up a little bit of time, guys. 1153-2023, as amended by Councilmember Santana. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with LG Blanket Mill, Maine, LLC, to provide economic development assistance to partially finance the Northern Ohio Blanket Mill mixed-use neighborhood project located in the Clark-Fulton neighborhood. And it is amended, and I want to make sure I read the amended language. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In Section 2, at the end, insert RQS 9501 RL 2023-105. The date that this is signed is 11/1/23 by Stephanie Melnick, Chief Assistant Director of Law. We have our Economic Development Director today, Mr. McNair, and then Mr. Hudson. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a really exciting project, as mentioned, in the Clark-Fulton neighborhood that is going to provide 60 much-needed units of affordable housing. This is a project that I believe that you are all familiar with in Councilwoman Santana's ward, which is receiving a variety of levels of the city support, including a $2 million loan from the Department of Economic Development, $1.7 million in Housing Trust Fund dollars from the City of Cleveland's Department of Community Development. But I think that, as we all know, over the last couple of years, right, with skyrocketing interest rates, labor and materials continue to rise. This is a project that is being supported by Councilwoman Santana with an additional $1 million alongside the Cuyahoga County, which is setting up with a $1 million forgivable loan that can close the gap to finally move this transformative project forward. As you mentioned, here with Mr. Hudson, who can provide a little bit of additional information on the project.
Thank you. Council President Griffin, members of council, my name is Kevin Hudson, and I'm the Director of Development for the Living Group Incorporated. We are a local real estate development company here in Cleveland. The Northern Ohio Blanket Mill is a mixed-use, historic preservation, adaptive reuse project that will turn the largest vacant property in the Clark-Fulton neighborhood into 60 multifamily affordable housing units with 31,400 square feet of commercial space, 1 block south of the Clark-Fulton intersection. The adaptive mixed-use plan of this formal industrial building meets the objectives of the city's master plan to provide needed affordable housing options and improve the streetscape conditions on an important commercial block within the Clark-Fulton community. The original manufacturing facility located between Fulton Road and West 33rd Street was constructed in 1889 for manufacturing of woolen horse blankets and carriage robes, and became the largest such manufacturer of the United States and one of the largest in the world by 1895. Unfortunately, by 1932, the blanket mill was no longer in production and has been functionally vacant for the last 30 years, or for the last 30 to 40 years, becoming a blighted property and a danger to the community. In 2013, Living Group Incorporated began working with the building's previous owner to position the blanket mill for redevelopment. And since 2020, the building has received low-income housing and historic tax credit awards, along with 60 rental vouchers through CMHA. The residential development plan for the blanket mill is to build 60 1-, 2-, and 3-bedroom affordable units for individuals and families earning 50% of the area median income or less on the second and third floor of the building, with tenant amenity space on the first floor. All of the building's 60 units will be supported by Section 8 vouchers through CMHA. The current waiting list has over 900 names on it. Construction on the residential units began in August of 2022, and we will start phased occupancy next month. The first floor commercial development will have as many as 3 local service agencies providing services to the near west side communities. Letters of intent and draft leases are currently being reviewed by providers now. Commercial tenants were targeted based on their menu of services with the goal of expanding services from the blanket mill location, and will include primary health care and midwifery services, settlement services for immigrants and refugees, and a broad menu of additional services and programs to connect families to the communities. The addition of 60 new affordable units and activated commercial space will have a direct positive impact on the neighborhood, but an important additional community benefit is that Metro West Community Development Organization is 25% of the project's general partnership and will share in developer fee and annual income to fund community-based programs. Additional benefits to the community include, but are not limited to, quality affordable housing that serves individuals and families, as well as needed community services connected to existing automobile, public transit, and future planned bike and pedestrian infrastructure, new commercial activity on a vital neighborhood corridor, the property will generate tax revenue for the first time in 4 decades, and the many residual benefits of working with local contractors, suppliers, and trades unions, as well as minority and female-owned businesses. Lastly, the development team would like to give a special thanks to Councilwoman Santana, whose input informed the development plan and tireless support of our application for funding, without which the Northern Ohio Blanket Mill development and its affordable and accessible community benefits, as outlined today, could not happen.
Great. This is exciting. Before I move any further, I want to make sure, Ms. Jimenez, if you can add me, Councilman Anthony Hairston, Councilman Brian Casey, Councilman Kerry McCormick, and Councilwoman Jenny Spencer as co-sponsors. Any objection to all the council, just all the council, we could be added to that. We want to support our councilmatic sister with this. This is an important project that she's been trying to get done for a while. So seeing no objection, we'll have all the council as a co-sponsor of this, okay? Which brings me, I always start out with the chair, and then I'll go to the council person of record. Councilman Hairston, I know you relieved this, but do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As I've done with other very critical ARPA pieces that supports major projects in our communities, I've relieved it. These last batch, there's a time issue here. We want to make sure that we are able to support these projects so we can get them up, get them running. I know this is a priority for Councilwoman Santana. She's been working on this project along with the developers for quite some time, and there's a few pieces left of the pie that has to be carved out, and this is one of them. And so happy to support this project, and please list me as a sponsor. And as I tell others, don't forget my invitation to the ribbon cutting because I want to be there, okay? All right.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Councilwoman Santana.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am going to try not to get emotional, but I am just full of joy. We've been working on this project since I was elected, maybe 7 years, or even before, as we were having conversation. And Blanket Mills project was the first project that I worked on, and I learned so much from this project. When we talk about, one of the things that I always mention to you, President, is that sometimes I feel like these LIHTC projects don't serve the neighborhood where it's, developed, and the rents are still very high. And I learned a lot about community development and getting feedback from residents. And because of their feedback, Blanket Mills, the Live-In project, were able to tailor that project to the neighborhood, where we were able to partner with CMHA and make it 100% project-based voucher, meaning that the rents will be going down, and so it's affordable for the residents that are in our city. We know that housing is a huge need all across in our city. As Kevin mentioned, there's a 900, when I checked in last week with CMHA, there was 900 residents that have applied. And so this doesn't only benefit Ward 14, President. This benefits our overall residents of the city of Cleveland. We know that a lot of our residents, particularly I would say in Ward 14, because they're feeling the housing pressures, are moving to suburbs, because even suburbs now are cheaper and more affordable than the city of Cleveland, right? So we want to retain our residents in our city, and this project will help house 60 families in the city of Cleveland. So I really thank you, President, for your support. This definitely could not move forward without your leadership. I want to thank Hairston. I want to thank all my colleagues that are co-sponsoring this event. I get emotional because historically Ward 14 has not received investment. We looked at the numbers. It's less than 0.1 of allocations or investment that we've received in the past 20, 30 years. And so for us to do the Blanket Mills, for us to have Centro Via 25, for me, it is emotional. And I don't care to cry in front of anyone because, you know what? this is why I ran. I ran to help move Ward 14 forward, to help our residents, and we are able to do that with the help of this body. And I just can't thank my colleagues enough. I can't thank you, Director, enough. And you know what? I have to give kudos to previous Mayor Frank Jackson. You know, one of the things when I came up to him and I told him, hey, this is not affordable. You know, this is not going to serve our residents. He said, you know what? Tailor it. Speak to the developer. You are able to get creative with this, you know, the Fax 50, with the tax credits, and I followed his direction, and we were able to do it. So I'm happy that you're here, Kevin. Finally, after 7 years, this is a huge celebration. So just thank you all. Really thank you all for your support. I really appreciate it.
Congratulations, and don't think that your hard work hasn't gone unnoticed on this, so appreciate it. Good job, great job. All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1153-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Go this way. All right, thank you guys, appreciate you. All right. All right, the next one is ordinance number 1156-2023 as amended by Council Member Gray. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with Jordan Community Residential Center, DBA, Jordan Community Resource Center, to provide economic development assistance to partially finance renovation of its health and wellness facility known as the Oasis in the City. My good friend Tanisha Gant Watson is here representing. And as with the other ones, Ms. Jimenez, if you could you add all council members, because we all want to be in support of this for our colleague, Councilwoman Deborah Gray. Thank you. Ms. Gant Watson, please tell us what you have, and then we'll hear from our colleagues.
Oh, greetings, President and council members. My name is Tanisha Gant Watson. I'm CEO and founder of Jordan CRC. Jordan.
Could you talk into the mic?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Jordan CRC has been in existence. We'll be celebrating 20 years next year. In 2021, we actually acquired a property in the 4th District, 11921, Kinsman, actually. And if you can see there, the property began there at the bottom. That's how it looked in the beginning. Since we have started working on this project, we have did the renovations on the outside of the building. On the side of there was a debilitated building in which we worked with the City of Cleveland. Gus Frangos from the Land Bank assisted us in making sure that that lot next door was taken down, and it is now. Currently, we own the property, and the property is 3.5 acres of land, and the building is 17,500 square feet. In 2020, because of COVID, we had to move our location where we have our administrative office to Willoughby, Ohio. However, we currently have 32 beds in which we provide supportive housing for women, trauma-informed care and counseling. And so though our women that we serve are in Cuyahoga County, we had to then transport them all the way to Willoughby, Ohio, which is Lake County, in order to provide our services. When we were approached by Gus Frangos and the Land Bank about this property, we saw a great opportunity to be able to expand our services and then be able to provide services also, not just for the women that we serve, which are women who have been trafficked, those who have substance use disorders, and those who have been incarcerated. We now have the opportunity to provide services in the community as well as to the families of the women we serve and those that are in the community that need assistance that we currently provide. Within the Oasis in the City, and it's an awesome name because it is an oasis in the city, there will be House Success Tech, which is IT training, computer repair, and running help desk and entrepreneurship. Phoenix Counseling Solutions is a gender-specific counseling which provides treatment, trauma-informed care, healing, and counseling, spiritual support. Also, the Serenity Healing Garden and Greenhouses. We're working with another agency, some other agencies, as well as the owner of he owns a greenhouse company who will be working with Jordan in order to make sure that that works out well. And the property was once a Skateland. It was called Skateland and V&M's restaurant. And so in the back end of that, there will be an event center that will also be there in the city and for the constituents there in the 4th District. Additionally, we have Nia's Cafe, the Healing Kitchen, which is a training and development program to assist in employment placement. This will give opportunities to generate income, which is our strategy to bring in more economic development into the community, and that is pretty much what we do and what we intend to do. With the support of the ARPA funds, it would enable Jordan CRC to complete in Q1 the interior and exterior mechanics of the build-out of Nia's Cafe, vocational training space and kitchen, and also allow us the opportunity to bring our offices to Cleveland, to the 4th District, and provide wraparound services and education for those that are there, as well as our ladies that we provide services for, that many of them live in the 4th District. And so I just want to thank Councilwoman Gray and President and Council members just for this opportunity to work with the city. I've been trying to get here for a while, and I guess it's the timing that's perfect. And I'm grateful that together I know that we can assist in restoring minds, families, and the community.
This is great. All right. So, Councilman Hairston, I know you released this, but do you have any comments before we move further?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Again, as I said about our last piece, you know, the Jordan Center is organization that is providing critical work to many of those who are in need in our community. And this was not something that we wanted to sit on. We wanted to make sure that this continued to flow through the process as quickly as it can. I know Councilwoman Gray has been working on this for quite some time, and I wanted to make sure that we got this moving for her and for you all and for the community, most importantly. And so she stayed on top of it to make sure that it happened. And you know, I wanted to be able to support her request, and so we did relieve it from our DPNS process, so it can go to finance and ultimately go to the full council for approval. So thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I am excited and happy for Ms. Jordan for the oasis in the city. When I met Ms. Jordan, I have to give credit to our former councilor, Anita Gardner. She introduced us to last year, and she was talking about the process last year to me. But when she got the building, everyone in the neighborhood, you know, wanted to know who codified this building. Who is this person? And she had not got a chance to come to any other community meetings because she's a busy young lady that goes out the country quite a bit. But however, when I finally strapped her down, and I strapped her down finally, she took me to she took me on a tour throughout the building, throughout the whole area, you know, which I was familiar with. However, I fell in love with the process of what she wanted to have done to this building. And Ward 4 is much, much needed for everything that she wants to bring to this facility. Our community need that. And it's different and it's wanted, and it's going to be practical for the constituents to go to one location in the community of Kinsma, to bring Kinsma up to the point to know that they have all the facilities of what they need, especially that cafe. Especially the cafe from all her projects that she's going to have in that facility. That cafe is the most enduring and most inviting place that they're going to be in a very relaxing environment. So I thank you, councils, for this ordinance. I thank you, Economic Director, as well, to also help to move this on, because as you know, Kinsman needs something to build from. And in that particular area, we have no anchors per se to build from other than the plaza. But this is a big anchor for this area in Kinsma, for everyone to go on one place to get the spiritual, the financial, and the blessings that they need from this facility. So thank you, Harrison, Councilman Harrison, and the Financial Committee to approve this. Appreciate it. And
All right.
Ms. Jordan, Oasis in the City, and your assistant, I appreciate both of you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job once again, and congratulations, Councilwoman. Ms. Jimenez, remember, we want to make sure all council is added to this if we could, okay? All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number.
One more quick question.
Yes, Councilor.
I never seen this, this through the chair to the director, this building. And I've been everywhere, but I'm there for the piece. I like the concept, all of that. It's located where?
11921 Kinsman. It's the former B&M in Skateland. Remember the Skateland next to Pastor Gates's church?
With Jimmy Gates?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're right next door.
Okay, cool. That's all I want to know. I couldn't vision it in my mind.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're seeing no other questions. That ordinance number 1156-2023 stands approved. Thank you. Good luck. Looking forward to being at your grand opening.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now we in the speed round, I think, with all of the other directors. Ordinance number 748-2023 by Councilmembers McCormick, Bishop, Griffin, by departmental request an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into an amendment with the June 30th, 2016 Property Operations and Programming Agreement with the Group Plan Commission for Public Square to provide a restricted contribution to support the commission's maintenance obligations on Public Square. Yes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Council President and Council, this is a request from the Department of Public Works. We want to enter into a Sixth Amendment for this agreement with the Group Plan. The result of this request is a $500,000 contribution to the Group Plan Commission. This group was put together years ago through the work of the prior administration for the improvements to the public square. So the work that this group does is very instrumental to us. It actually takes a burden off of our folks to be able to do more things throughout the city. There is, from what I understand, there's a match that does go with this through the DCA. And I have with me Sana Julian to answer any questions related to this piece.
Okay, before we move any further, and well, go ahead. I hear from Sana, and then I just got one question. I just want to make sure I understand. But go ahead, you first.
Thank you very much, Council President Griffin, Councilman McCormick, you've both been wonderful supporters. The entire group has been wonderful supporters of ours. We have, since 2016, been operating, programming, managing Public Square. We have, at the request of council, back in 2020, worked with DCA to join our partners in the private sector to prepare a match for the funds that we receive from the city. So the match is $500,000 to the city's $500,000. The city's $500,000 is for maintenance, and the match is for other operations. So these funds go into our budget to handle all of the general maintenance funds and expenses that we have in our budget. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you have, but these funds are put to work to handle everything from snow removal to taking care of the fountain, to electrical, to plumbing, to general work throughout the square, and those expenses increase on an annual basis. The expenses for the square can annually be up to about $700,000. So this is a portion of the maintenance expenses in the square.
All right, thank you. I know that this has been in the works for a long time, but just want to make sure I understand. There were three kind of different parties operating or doing work around event planning, maintenance around Public Square. Downtown Cleveland Alliance, Destination Cleveland, and then I think the Group Plan. I thought that everybody was looking at trying to merge. I just want to make sure I understand, or did I misinterpret that?
So allow me to explain. So Group Plan Commission has been the primary organization who's program managing and operating the square. If I take from the prior conversation we heard from the market, We have a management agreement with the city. DCA works with us from a partnership standpoint, and Destination Cleveland also has some events in the square. Moving forward, DCA is going to be the primary group, and we are working on an MOU agreement for them to be the primary group that manages the parks moving forward. But for this calendar year, it will be Group Plan Commission that finishes up this calendar year. We have not completed our MOU. We're still in process of that transition. So that transition is in process.
So you say this calendar year, you mean 2023?
Correct, 2023.
So we're basically passing legislation to pay for the services that we've already rendered
Correct.
through 2023.
Correct.
But in 2024, will we be not getting legislation still about this time next year?
This legislation for next year will be up to DCA in terms of timing. So we had been working on the legislation
Got it.
for this year as far back as the beginning of the year. And then it just took a long time to get through the process.
All right, got it. Councilman Bishop, this went through your committee, and then Councilman McCormick.
Mr. President, I don't think this went through my committee, Mr. President.
Oh, this went last week. I think this went when you were absent. This is the last meeting. Councilman McCormick, I know you've been working on this one for a while.
Thank you, Mr. President. As noted, every year we provide this funding for the upkeep of Public Square, which is matched by the private sector, which is Ms. Julia noted earlier as well. So the maintenance is through this contract. This has been an annual appropriation for six
This is the
years?
sixth amendment, yeah.
Okay, so year 6. So fully support this legislation, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other, yes, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Council President. Nice to meet you, Ms. Julie. Never met you before. Nice to meet you in person. Yes, I thank you for clarifying, Councilman McCormick, that this is an ongoing and recurring request of council, and that sounds like it's in its 6th year. I wanted to clarify, again, it was touched upon, but through our chair, what is the overall cost of annual maintenance at Public Square?
Councilman Spencer, through Council President Blaine Griffin, the annual expense is roughly $700,000, and it can fluctuate based on snow, based on plant material, so there's some fluctuation in there. And the city's responsibility has been $500,000 of that roughly $700,000.
Are there discussions about fundraising to reduce the city's burden, and what might that look like in the future?
So
Through
yes,
the chair.
absolutely. Through the chair, we have absolutely been fundraising, continue to annually fundraise, and the challenges have varied. So prior to COVID, our fundraising had been growing through sponsorship, through general grants, through beverage sales, through event rentals, et cetera. Then we hit COVID, and we hit 2.5 years really of stagnant rentals, stagnant beverage sales, stagnant sponsorships. We are just now coming out of that period, and as we come out of that period, we're seeing the organizational transition. So in terms of speaking of what Downtown Cleveland Alliance will do in the future, I'm not sure what they're going to be doing in the future, because we may not be involved as individuals and as an organization, but I'm certain that that's something that they're going to be considering in the future. That will have to be something that they consider in the future in order to be successful. The model that we had been working on from 2016 through 2019 was growing those buckets of our income, which allowed us to be ahead of the curve every year in terms of growth. And there was always going to be the need for some commitment from the city, but we were trying to decrease the need from the city, decrease the need from the philanthropic community, and grow our business channels. And we were in that process, and then the world collapsed in COVID, and the event world completely shut down. Even the city had sent notifications that we couldn't host a single event during COVID. And it's been a challenge to get that event world growing. In fact, concerts are the one area of the event business that has opened back up, but we are challenged to compete with the concert industry due to the fact that we are not gated. And it costs quite a bit of money to produce an event in Public Square because we have to build the entire infrastructure from scratch in Public Square. Whereas if you go to a venue that already has the entire infrastructure built, it's less expensive for a concert promoter to put their concert there versus in Public Square. I've run every performa possible, and the expense is still higher in Public Square, and the guarantee for artists continues to grow. So it's a little more challenging in that space to grow revenue.
Thank you. And then through the chair, just to clarify, presuming next year a similar request will come to the table, it would be Downtown Cleveland Alliance making the request. Is that accurate?
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, that is correct.
Okay.
Right now, we're looking at the current expenses that have happened this year. This legislation will cover what is currently happening right now.
I look forward to future discussion about that and hearing about the transition. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right. Seeing no other questions, Councilman McCormick, did you have, I know you've been on top of this too, did you have any feedback on this? Or you, Councilman Bishop? Councilman Bishop, did you have any feedback on this? And then Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I fully support this piece of legislation.
All right, Councilman McCormick.
Yep, no, I fully support, Mr. President.
Okay, got it. Oops. All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 748-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have ordinance number 1013-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance, determining the method of making the public improvement of constructing improvements to the residential handling facilities at Baldwin, Crown, and Nottingham water treatment plants, and authorizing the director of public utilities to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvement. Director.
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Chairman. Members of the committee, the water treatment process creates residuals which also need to be treated. This ordinance would allow us to make necessary improvements at 3 of the water treatment plants on the residuals/slud facility improvements at Baldwin, Crown, and Nottingham. Anticipated cost $7,400,000. Request approval.
All right. Councilman Casey.
Duly vetted and recommended for passage out of utilities.
Okay, do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1013-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. All right, next is ordinance number 1014-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the director of public utilities to enter into one or more contracts, OW Investors LLC, DBA Mars Company, for professional services necessary to provide software and hardware maintenance to test and maintain residential and commercial water meters for the Division of Water, Department of Public Utilities for a period of 1 year, with one option to renew for an additional year, exercisable by the Director of Public Utilities. Director.
Thank you, Chairman. The MARS software hardware is how we test our residential and commercial water meters. The MARS Calibration Maintenance and Support Program, known as MARS Maintenance Calibration Certification, is designed specifically for waterworks, for the waterworks industry. We have at Cleveland Water utilized the MARS proprietary software to ensure the reliability and accuracy of the meters in our system. 2 years, anticipated cost of $302,000. Request approval.
All right. Any other questions on ordinance number 1014-2023? Councilman Casey?
Duly vetted, recommended for passage.
All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1014-2023 stands approved. I believe, I'm going to make sure I go through all of public utilities while we got you here. 1026, ordinance number 1026-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, and emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of constructing the West 70th Street, Baltic Road, Homer Avenue, and West 38th Street area sewer projects, including but not limited to manholes, catch basins, authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more public improvement contracts to construct the improvement, and authorizing the Director to employ one or more professional consultants necessary to design and implement the improvement and to apply for and accept funding. Director and Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, joined by Commissioner Lowry Farrell. This is for the Division of Water Pollution Control. A number of different projects were identified by her and her team, not only based on age, but based on a number of different criteria. This is anticipated to cost approximately $7.8 million. We hope to be coming back at a more regular basis as additional opportunities for funding, which, again, the Commissioner and her team are very aggressive on. However, we are seeking authority to move forward on these 4 projects.
Great. All right, Director or Commissioner or any Commissioner?
Thank you. To the chair, as the director indicated, these are all, we of course have a whole other list of projects, but these are the ones that just are at the priority at the current time, mostly based on capacity and other sewer issues, not necessarily just the age, but more on the capacity and problems. So that is it. We're hoping that you will approve so we can move forward with these projects.
Great. Councilman Casey.
Duly vetted and recommended for passage.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1026-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Next one is ordinance number 1086-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the general fund to receive and use revenue from tax remittances collected by Cleveland Public Power during the years 2024 and 2025 and transfer 100% of tax remittances collected in both years back to Cleveland Public Power. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. The kilowatt hour tax is dictated to us by the Ohio Constitution. The state requires that we collect it. The state requires that we remit it to the general fund. This ordinance would allow us to continue to receive 100% of those proceeds back to the Division of Cleveland Public Power for another 2 years. Request approval.
All right, thank you. Councilman Casey?
Duly vetted, recommended for passage.
All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1086-2023 stands approved. Next one we'll go to is ordinance number 1136-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more contracts with the Cleveland Water Alliance for professional services necessarily to provide state-of-the-art water quality detection equipment and deploy, maintain, and retrieve data from 4 buoys in Lake Erie for the Division of Water, Department of Public Utilities for a period of up to 3 years. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. And I should have, Commissioner Mark Gavish is here. Those are his buoys. He likes them a lot. They give us very important data. Cleveland Water Alliance is a great partner of ours, not only on this, but on a number of different endeavors. And yeah, the Commissioner can talk about buoys until the meeting at 7. Commissioner.
Yes.
But don't.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the Division of Water takes very serious now its study of the science of Lake Erie, and these buoys are critical to us, especially in studying hypoxia or low oxygen in water, and that causes us treatment challenges. So we learn a lot now thanks to these buoys and get advanced warning of conditions as they approach our intakes.
And I was fortunate enough to get out this year to actually see the Margavicius crib and buoys and all of that. So definitely, I thought it was very ingenuitive, what you did, a lot of ingenuity. And I encourage everybody to see that in this time. Any other questions, Councilman Casey?
Duly vetted and recommended for passage.
All right. What number is that?
1136.
All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1136-2023 stands approved. Last one, I believe, for Councilman Casey is ordinance number 1232-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 129-295 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance 1287-15, passed November 16, 2015, relating to applying for and accepting grants and other funding for sewer projects and in the capital improvement plan to include all divisions of the Department of Utilities. Director.
Thank you, Chairman. Currently, the Division of Water Pollution Control has the codified authority to apply for and accept grants and other funding opportunities. What we're simply seeking is authority to do it in the codified ordinances across the organization, so the Division of Water Pollution Control, Cleveland Water, and Cleveland Public Power. As council is well aware and usually sends them to us, and we do have a number of team members who regularly screen and keep an eye on different grant opportunities. Again, no dollar would be able to be spent without council authority. By no means are we looking to circumvent the legislative process. However, these deadlines are getting shorter. We want to make sure that we're taking every opportunity to take advantage of that on behalf of our customer. Request approval.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Casey.
Duly vetted, recommended for passage, Mr. Chairman.
All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1232-2023 stands approved. Please sign off.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day. See you guys later. See you, Commissioner. See you, Commissioner. Thank you. All right, next one is ordinance number 1239-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 38 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. I know we have the Human Resource Director, but it seems like a lot of these are dealing with airports, and I know you have an airport administrator with you, but where's Director Byron, what's Director's last name?
Oh, Francis.
Francis, yeah, where's Director Francis at?
So, Chairman and council members, Commissioner Dina Wilson is here on behalf of the airport to address this particular piece of legislation.
Okay, help me understand why these are needed, because I know that we kind of stood on these until the new director got in, because we wanted to make sure that we had an understanding of why these titles and everything were being done. That's why I wanted to make sure if the director was coming or not.
To the chair, could you help me understand a little bit more about?
Were these introduced a while back?
So,
or are these new?
Just once.
There's just one, yeah. So on October 23rd, I presented just the one piece of legislation, and I believe that it was approved for introduction, an introductory reading only.
1239-2023. All right, so give us a little background. What is this? So we can make sure we understand.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was in relation to seeking approval to add the classification of airport chief of airport rescue and firefighting, for ARF for short, and then to amend the pay band, section 38, to increase the salary for that position so we could go ahead and post it. So it was essentially increasing the maximum for that classification to $180,000. That was based upon a survey that the airport did for like positions at other like-size airports in the U.S.
What is it now?
Currently, I don't have what you know what? We didn't have a previous minimum maximum because this is a new position.
To the chair, so part of the reason we needed to do this was because there was an administrative error somewhere along the way where there wasn't a pay band associated with the classification. We found that out when we were putting someone in the position for an interim basis. So they're in a generic classification right now, so therefore we created we already had the job description developed, but then we had that passed at the Civil Service Commission for a new classification, which we were glad to do that because it's more current they are called ARF chiefs versus they used to be called airport safety chiefs, which is a bit antiquated. So then now we're coming forward to get the salary band associated with the new classification.
Okay, I'm good. I just know that we wanted to make sure with the airport that we gave the new director an opportunity to come in, review his operations, and then make whatever suggestions that he saw fit. And we were adamant about that before when we had an interim director, but now we actually have a director. So that's why I wanted to ask if these were alignments that he was trying to make so that we could stay on top of those. And have you talked to the chairman of your committee to make sure that he's in line or he's okay with it too?
So this absolutely, Director Bryant Francis is, aware of what we're proposing. And also, he is also aware of all of the other recommendations that we're making moving forward that would come to the council. Absolutely.
Councilman Pulisic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleague. The only question I had, the airport, and this is the question we've raised, the airport chief of aircraft rescue and firefighting, does that individual have to be a certified firefighter?
Through the chair to Councilman Pulisic, yes, they do have to be a firefighter. And one of the qualifications upon posting is a minimum of 10 years of service, including 5 years as a lieutenant.
As a lieutenant. So the person there's somebody in there acting right now, correct, Mr. Chairman? To whoever?
Correct.
Okay, so this will be posted, this job will be posted?
Yes.
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, so then people apply for it from whatever.
That's correct.
But what is the chief of fire making out there now? What is the salary? Do we know?
Through the chair to the council, I don't know exactly what but he's in an acting capacity right now, interim.
Okay.
He's not permanently.
Okay, and then if you could supply that to us, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure, because there's always been this tension between the firefighters, quote unquote, out there and our local here, Local 93. And I just want to make sure that that everybody out there is a certified firefighter.
Yes.
Okay.
So through the chair
Yeah.
to the council. So, and we are having compression issues in this across our organization, but also in ARF, in that because of the recent pay band adjustments and modifications to the CBAs that have been made, the lieutenants are in Local 93 that you mentioned are going to be making a sizable amount of an increase, which is pushing to the next layer of our commanders, which then also trickles to the chief. Additionally, we have issues. We are recruiting nationally because we're recruiting from other airports. And so therefore, the compensation needs to be comparable so that we can attract candidates from other airports.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1239-2023 stands approved.
Thank
All
you.
right, no problem. Next one is ordinance number 1257-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance on behalf of the Office of Urban Analytics and Innovation to apply for and accept a grant from the Cleveland Foundation for the Open Data Culture and Processes Program, which will support the mission of the office to enter into various written standard purchase and requirement contracts, and authorizing the director to employ one or more professional consultants to implement the grant. Director and Commissioner.
To the chair and to the committee, joined by Doug Neal from Urban Analytics, and they have an opportunity to secure a grant. There is no match for this grant, so this is just a flat-out grant to the city, and I'm going to let Doug explain a little bit more about what it's going to be used for.
To the chair, my name is Doug Neal, and I'm the Assistant Director of Urban AI. Director Crow wishes she could be here today, but she's traveling at a conference. I am here today because the Office of Urban Analytics and Innovation is seeking authorization to accept the grant in the amount of $150,000 from the Cleveland Foundation over a 2-year period. The grant will support the innovation and data efforts of Urban AI, including, point one, establish a data culture in the city through internal meetups, networking opportunities, branded merchandise, and other related activities designed to break down silos and establish a culture of data sharing and collaboration. Point two, provide training on data technology, industry best practices, and data-driven decision-making. Point 3, comprehensively launch version 1 of a public-facing open data portal, including and implementing technology, establishing governance, and training internal and external users to use the tool. And point 4, evaluate selected business processes to ensure data is ready to be shared in the open data portal. I am happy to take any questions.
All right, I don't have any council, does anybody on council have any? All right, you guys got off easy. Ordinance number, seeing there are no other questions, ordinance number 1257-2023 stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Conwell will be watching that one like a hawk. That's what he watches, data, analytics. All right. Next one is ordinance number 1193-2023 by Council Members Jones, Bishop, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of reconstructing Johnson Parkway from Garfield Heights city limits to Velma Avenue, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvement, accepting any gifts or grants, authorizing the Commissioner of Purchases and Supplies to acquire, accept, and record for right-of-way purposes any real property and easements necessary to make the improvement, and authorizing the agreements. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so as you mentioned, this is for reconstruction of Johnson Parkway, and this is from the Garfield city limits to the south up to Velma Avenue to the north. And the proposed roadway, or the roadway, as you know, is a heavy industrial business access road, and it is in quite poor condition, 36 out of 100 PCR. The reason it took so long is because it's a $3 million project and it does not qualify for state or federal funds. And so while we tried for other funding sources, we had to use road and bridge bonds for it, which is hard to accumulate for $3 million. So it's about 0.84 miles in length. We are going to put this out to bid and have two prices, one for asphalt, one for concrete, so that we can evaluate which one is best. And we anticipate to do the work next year, so we'll be going out to bid over the winter time and have construction next year.
That's great. Okay, Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Municipal Services. Oh, he's not here. Okay, any questions regarding ordinance number 1193-2023? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1193-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. The last, or next piece is ordinance number 1022-2023 by Council Members Hairston and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 13807 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 1266-02, passed January 27, 2003, relating to enhancing the city's ability to address nuisance property. Do we have anybody here to represent 1022? Okay, so we holding this one? We're gonna hold this one, okay? Do we have another one for you, Director? Yeah, oh, come on up. These are the for suspension, under suspensions. All right, we have 4 pieces that we want introduced and passed on emergency. And these are collective bargaining units. Just to let you know, there were 2 other bargaining units that we rerouted to public safety because we want to make sure we vet them a little bit more. But these will be introduced and considered for passage this evening. Okay? The first is ordinance number 1304-2003 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the collective bargaining agreement with the Laborers International Union of America, Local 860, non-supervisory and supervisory, to amend sections 26 and 27 of ordinance number 194-2021, passed March 29, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. If I'm not mistaken, this is basically a bargaining agreement that you guys have reached, right?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. This is a successor agreement with Local 860. The piece of legislation is to ratify the collective bargaining agreement, amend the 2 pay bands, which are section 26 and 27. In terms of notable changes, there is a 2% standard increase for years 22 through 24. There are various equity adjustments throughout. A couple other notes, addition of the Juneteenth holiday, an increased uniform allowance specifically for the Department of Waste Control, and then an increased probationary period for part-time and seasonal employees.
Okay, great. Are there any questions regarding ordinance number 1304-2023?
Yep. Chairman,
Councilman Valencia.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, so it's 2, 2, and 2, correct?
Through the chair to Councilman Pawlentzek, yes. That's
Okay, is
correct.
there anything else, any significant change in the agreement that we should be aware of?
Through the chair to Councilman Pawlentzek, there are various equity adjustments in the collective bargaining agreement for various positions. But other than that, there's no other significance.
So there, in this agreement, there is no, I'm trying to think of a best way to describe it. There is no bonus or signing incentive?
Through the chairman to Councilman Pawlentzek, there is no bonus for this one.
Nothing? And then, Mr. Chairman, I would really pose this to the Safety Director. In light of all the agreements, can you tell us how many collective bargaining agreements we have voted on so far?
Director?
I'm sorry, Councilman Pawlentzek.
Do you know how many collective bargaining agreements that we have passed so far?
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm not entirely sure the number. There have been several over the last couple of months.
Do you know?
Approximately 23, 80 Morales has informed me.
So how many more do we have to go?
There are a total of 34.
So we have, so we're over 50%.
Yeah. Correction, 31 collective bargaining agreements.
So we're over half.
Correct.
Okay. So at some point, I'm again, obviously, we're going to be faced with the upcoming budget, but has the administration calculated at all what the increase, as a result of the negotiations that have transpired so far, administration have any indication what additionally that's going to do to the budget at this point?
Through the chair to Councilman Pawlentzek, are you talking about a total amount of dollars?
Yeah.
I have not received any report in terms of what the effects, the total effects are to the budget.
Okay. Well, obviously, we'll be getting that, deep diving that in the budgetary process. I'm just, in light of the agreements that are going to be coming to us for police, I'm just trying to look at the big picture here as it pertains to the overall general fund budget. And so, okay, I'll be asking that questions of the finance director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, once again, ordinance number 1304-2023 will be introduced and considered for passage this evening. Ordinance number 1305-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, Chief Dispatcher, and to amend Section 15 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021, as amended relating to salaries for various classifications. Director.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another successor agreement with the chief dispatchers. As you noted, it's to ratify the collective bargaining agreement and amend pay band Section 15. Notable changes in this particular contract include differentials related to pay increases. Very notably, the implementation of a 12-hour shift, which is a substantial change from previous business. Again, addition of the Juneteenth holiday, and then an increased probationary period as well, 280 days.
So just to be clear, this is for the dispatchers. This is not the Police Patrolmen's Association.
That's correct.
Chief Dispatcher.
Correct.
Okay, because I want to make sure, because I know a couple are going to the committee process, that we want to make sure that we get.
So,
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
For police dispatchers.
Through the chairman to Councilman, yes, correct. This is the chief dispatchers. Police dispatchers,
Okay,
correct.
that's what I'm trying to find out. Okay.
All right. Okay, seeing no questions, ordinance number 1305-2023 will be introduced and considered for passage this evening. Ordinance number 1306-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 38, and to amend Section 20 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. Director.
Excuse me. Thank you again, Chairman. Yes, this is another successor agreement to ratify the collective bargaining agreement, or the legislation to ratify the collective bargaining agreement. It does amend pay band Section 20. Notable changes similar to the other contract is a 2% increase for the years 22 through 24. There's an additional 6.23% equity adjustment in this contract, and an adjustment to the uniform allowance. Those are the main notable changes in this contract, very standard.
Okay. Councilman Pelisi.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, explain the equity adjustment.
Through the chairman to councilman, the generally equity adjustments are, whereas there was some type of a study or analysis done on the positions with others of similar duties, and it was agreed upon to raise their base rate or equalize their rate of pay by 6.23%.
And that was then the 2% is on top of that?
Yes, through the chairman to councilman, yes, the 2% is the standard GWI.
And you're referring to as an equity adjustment?
Correct.
And has that been the case in the other collective bargaining agreements as well?
Through the chair, there are other collective bargaining agreements that have equity adjustments for the same reason.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1306-2023 will be introduced and considered for passage this evening. Next is the last piece of legislation, ordinance number 1307-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the Plumbers Local 55 plumbers inspectors, and to amend Section 21 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. Director.
Thank you again, Chairman. This is, again, another successor agreement, this one with the plumbers. As you stated, it's to ratify the CBA as well as amend pay band Section 21. Notable changes to this one, again, include the 2% increase for years 22 through 24, the 6.23% equity adjustment as well, and then also an adjustment to the uniform allowance as well.
All right, do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1307-2023 stands approved. It'll be heard for passage, consideration and passage this evening. Seeing no other legislation.
Two others.
Where's that at? We got two more? I don't see anything else.
CPPA.
We didn't do with those two, we were going through the committee process. CPPA, yeah, those two are going through the committee process. Yep. We're going to send those through the committee process with Councilman Pelisi. Okay. So see him and he'll set up a safety committee meeting and then it'll come to us, okay?
Okay. Thank
All right,
you, Chairman.
thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other legislation, ordinance, this Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee stands approved. Please reconvene this evening at 7 o'clock in the main council chambers. Thank you.
limit your kid to just one sport. All sports contribute to you becoming a great overall athlete, which is necessary in all sports.
You know, we look at some of our alumni